Welcome back to Ark Salt Lake on this Thursday morning. Time right now is 7:30. There's always a lot going on in Utah, and we like to dissect it all and talk about it. So joining me right now is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert. He always likes to come on here and give us his take on a variety of topics. Governor Herbert, thank you for being here.
Well, Lincoln, thank you for having me. I'm certainly not shy about expressing my opinion, right or wrong.
Well, we are happy to have you. We like talking about things. Let's talk about wildfires, because that's been a really big issue so far in Utah this year. It's been a pretty bad early season. What has it been like for you to watch what's going on?
Well, it's just reminiscent of 2013. We had a lot of fires. It goes up and down, and the drought comes and goes. And we're in a very severe drought now, and so consequently fire levels and hazards are up. And we have a lot of acres being burned. And so I don't see that stopping right now, but I think we ought to make sure that we all are very careful about what we do. 75% of these fires are all human caused. So we can make a difference if we'll just be careful, use a little common sense, and follow the rules.
As you know, Governor Spencer Cox instituted a statewide fireworks ban. However, local towns and municipalities, they were free in a certain sense to set some of their own rules. What do you think about that ban, and do you think perhaps it should continue through the Pioneer Day holiday?
Well, obviously it's not something anybody wants to do, and I'm sure Spencer doesn't want to do that either, but under an abundance of caution, he has no choice. And so I think it should continue. Unless we have a snowstorm between now and the 24th of July, we probably ought to continue with the ban that we currently have in place. There are places in the cities where we're going to have displays and exhibitions and celebration. So it's not like fireworks are going to be totally banned, but just only in appropriate places. So all of us ought to just be considerate and say, you know, that's just the way it is this year, and abide by the city rules and abide by the ban. And again, we are part of the problem. 75% are being caused by humans, and so we ought to be more careful and stop that.
And of course, when it comes to fireworks, definitely some strong opinions here on both sides. People really love their 4th of July, their Pioneer Day celebrations. We saw a lot of heated comments coming from, as I said, both sides when there was a lot of talk about this. What do you want to say about kind of how divisive that can be?
Well, again, I think there's disappointment and frustration that comes along with the changes of the rules, what we'd anticipated, what we expected, and what we've done historically. I get that, but this is not a time where we can't say, well, let's get in an argument about it. We got to quit burning down the state of Utah, and our forest lands and our public properties out there need to be protected, and we ought to all take some pride in that and do the right thing. This is not a thing that's void of conscience. It should be just common sense. So I understand some make their living selling fireworks. This will be a hardship. It's a hardship on for a lot of the farmers because of the drought too. So the hardship goes around, but let's just come together and do the best we can and understand this is a unique year. And until we get some more weather, some more rain, moisture, hopefully we'll have a bigger snowfall this fall and winter. We're going to have to change our behavior.
I want to talk about a different topic here, a little bit tied in because it is drought related. Here at 2 News, we've done a number of stories on Lake Powell this week, and the really, really low water levels right now. I believe they're at 24% capacity, and there's a lot of worry about what to do. The the Bureau of Reclamation, they have released water from Flaming Gorge as kind of an emergency Band-Aid measure. Some people have proposed, well, we need to prop up Lake Mead more than we do Lake Powell. Maybe we need to abandon Lake Powell to focus on that. Just in that all-encompassing topic, what would you like to say?
Well, it goes back to the Colorado River Compact of 1922, and unfortunately for many of the states, California was guaranteed a certain amount of water, and as long as the Colorado River is full, that's fine, but it's not full. And you already mentioned how low Lake Powell is getting as far as its water level, less than 25% full. And so the drawdown from the Colorado River, a lot of the water goes to California, and then we get percentages of what's left over, and there's not much left over. The Lake Powell was designed under a different set of circumstances than we find ourselves today. So at a certain level of about 3,500 feet, there is no way to drain Lake Powell. There's no spillway that goes below the spillway, so there's no hole in the bottom of the dam. So you've got all that water at that level stuck like a bathtub of Lake Powell, and it's not being used for anything other than just sitting there. So that's part of the argument. Should we release it and let it sit in Lake Mead? The hydropower aspects of Glen Canyon Dam and the hydro aspects of that are forfeited if we don't do something like that. There's not any really great options, but I think the idea of having water sit in Lake Powell when it could be doing some work on hydropower and other water needs a lower level has got to be considered, and I expect they're going to use hopefully some common sense and wisdom to come together on what should be done. Probably there needs to be a hole put in the bottom of the Lake Powell so you have more control of the water.
Yeah, that would be modifying the dam in a certain sense, so that could be a pretty big undertaking.
It would be.
Well, Governor, let me ask you about this. Governor Cox and the Western governors, they were working on upgrading energy out in the American West, including nuclear power and upgrading 12,600 miles of high-voltage transmission lines. When you heard about this, just talk about how those governors are kind of tackling energy in the West.
Well, it's an ongoing quest to have energy. I know that when I came into office, we had kind of three pillars. We wanted to have economic growth and development, education, and energy. The foundation for good quality of life and economic development is, in fact, energy, and we need more of it. Again, with all we're doing with AI, etc., more energy is needed. And the good news is there's not a limit on the amount of energy we can produce. Different forms, whether it be solar, wind, nuclear, traditional carbon-based fuels, we can produce the energy we need. California, when I was governor, Jerry Brown was the governor of California, and he wanted to join together in a common grid. The problem with that for us was, with that common grid that we put all of our power into, it raised the cost of energy in Utah and lowered the cost of energy in California. I didn't think that was a very good idea, and so we didn't agree to do that, and it was stopped. But developing more sources of energy in a collaborative effort, the majority of the BTUs in America come from the Intermountain West. Wyoming, a lot of coal. We have coal, natural gas. We're having an abundance of energy in Utah. We should be, and I think we are now, an exporter of energy to other states. So it's a big issue for all states. We need more power, and we have the ability to produce it. Let's come together and figure out what our individual capabilities are and work together to produce the power we need for the future.
All right, Governor, let me end on this. How did you celebrate the 4th of July, our 250th birthday? It was a big one.
Well, you know, for those of us in elected office and politicians, and really for the general public, the 4th of July is an opportunity to reflect on our history and really to re-energize ourselves as patriots and lovers of liberty and freedom that America showcases. So it kind of recharges my batteries. Since 1990, I've not missed July 4th parade in Provo. I've been to all the different events, the Stadium of Fire, fireworks were actually very spectacular this year. That's a place you could go and get your fill of fireworks. And we have family gatherings. We've done every year. We have about 35 of my family gathered in one of our backyards. We have barbecue, hot dogs, hamburgers. All the kids come and play. The grandkids come. It's a nice family opportunity to get together. And the underlying benefit is remember the goodness of our founding fathers, the wisdom they have and what they've given us, this great Constitution that we ought to all uphold. We ought to put our hands over our heart when the flag goes by. We ought to proudly give the Pledge of Allegiance. We ought to pray more fervently that God will protect this great country as we can continue to be a light to the world on what the possibilities are for mankind.
All right. Former Governor Gary Herbert, thank you so much for, again, joining us and chatting all things Utah. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.